What's going on, guys? Got Frozone here, and I'm here with a brand new video. This is a draft breakdown for the DDL, or DDL Draft League, here in Scarlet Violet post-home little draft league. So this is really exciting. This is only my second draft league here in Generation 9, so I'm really excited to get this started and get into this draft breakdown. So basically, the way the format works is that instead of going by points like leagues like the BBR and the PPL do, I believe, the DDL, the DDL Draft League, DDL, goes by a tier system. So basically, everybody had to select 2 S tiers, 3 A plus tiers, 3 A tiers, 2 A tiers, 2 B tiers, a C tier, and a D or below. So that's what we went with. Here I'll show you guys my draft, including the order in which I selected everything, and just how well I think they're gonna do. What roles they're gonna fill on the team, and hopefully how well they're gonna do this upcoming season. So let's just get right into it. Let's stop stalling. So first of all, here we have Baxcalibur. So this was my first round pick. I think I was pick number 7 in the draft out of 12, so not one of the better positions if you ask me, but still I was able to get my hands on this bad boy. Now, Baxcalibur is a Pokemon that I've been wanting to use since Scarlet and Violet came out. It's one of the only Dragon Ice types in the game. I think it's that along with there's Kyurem and maybe 1 or 2 others, but Dragon Ice is a very unique typing. It's really, really strong. Ice already has very few defensive answers. Steel and Water and Fire come to mind. And Bax has pretty much everything it needs for all of those, because it only needs Glaive Rush and Ice Move, and maybe 1 extra in case you need to hit like an extra bulky Fairy or an extra bulky Steel, so like Earthquake or, Iron Head or something like that. But in general, I think Bax is going to be sort of my number 1 sweeper, win condition, wall breaker throughout this season, so it should be really good. And it's got reliable setup. You can run a Choice Band. There's so much I can do with it that I would be remiss if I passed up on the opportunity to use Baxcalibur in a draft league. So I was getting kind of into round 2, and none of my picks are close to each other. I have to go through however, like 10 or 12 picks every single round before I want another Pokemon. So I kind of drafted each pick with the idea that, okay, this is a Pokemon that I know is going to work well with what I already have, and it'll set me up to where I have a lot of options for any future plans. So this is where I went with Galar Slowking. So obviously, since Baxcalibur is a Dragon type, one of its natural weaknesses is going to be the Fairy type, and Galarian Slowking is one of the best Fairy counters in the entire game. Pretty much, if you are a special attacking Fairy type and you don't have access to Terrestrialization, then you pretty much cannot touch this Galarian Slowking. It will eat every Moonblast, every Shadow Ball, every Dark Pulse you try to go for, and it will, with its base 110 special attack, kill you right back. And it's got stuff like Sludge Bomb to hit Fairies, Flamethrower to hit Steels. Obviously, you have Stab Psychic to hit stuff like fighting types, and other poison types to help break through those. It's got a lot of good utility moves, Toxic Spikes, Toxic, Trick, Thunder Wave, but the number 1 reason that I wanted Slowking Galar, outside of all of those reasons, is Chilly Reception, right? Which starts the snow, and then you switch out, right? It's like a mix between U-Turn and Snowscape. I think they're calling it Snowscape these days. So I'm a really big fan of the Slowking pick here, because I can, let's say, come in on a Fairy type. If a Fairy type wants to try to switch, go into something like a Ground type or a Dark type, I can use Chilly Reception heal with Regenerator whatever damage I took, and go out into one of my other Pokemon that can hopefully counter whatever just came in to check my Slowking. So, Slowking, I've been wanting to use this Pokemon, or regular Slowking even, for a very long time. I finally have the chance now, and with Chilly Reception and Baxcalibur, hopefully this can be my strong S-tier core that I've wanted. So, next up, I went into the A+ tier, and I grabbed Rotom Wash. Now, the reason I grabbed Rotom Wash is pretty simple. It wasn't anything about, like, the typing, or its speed, or its stats, or its utility that I wanted in particular. But Rotom Wash is, in my opinion, the ultimate jack-of-all-trades Pokemon. It could do pretty much whatever you want it to do. It can be a sweeper, it can be a defensive switch-in, it can be an all-around pivot, it can be a utility mon. Like, there's so much it can do with its tools that I almost never want to pass it up whenever I see it on the draft board, especially in round 3. So, I actually originally wanted Hisuian Zoroark, but that got sniped, I think, 1 or 2 picks before it got to me, so I went with Rotom instead. Rotom's really nice. I can Volt Switch on everything. Everything that is immune to Volt Switch is almost certainly going to be weak to Hydro Pump, so Rotom Wash creates a very interesting catch-22, where it's like, okay, do I go into this Pokemon that will take any hit, but I lose momentum, or do I want to go into my ground type and potentially catch a Hydro Pump? There's a lot of really cool things you can do with Rotom Wash, so that's why I decided to go with it as my first A+ tier pick. So then I was looking at the rest of A+ tier, and I was like, none of this is really fitting into my core or what I want to draft, so maybe I'll just come back to it. Maybe I'll dive into the A tier, or I'm kind of looking around the A tier, and I'm like, none of this is really sticking out to me, So I decided to dip into the B tier, because I saw a pick that I thought was very valuable in where it's at, and that is Chestnut. Now, the reason I think Chestnut is very valuable in Generation 9 is twofold. One, there's no more Hidden Power Flying, so any ordinary attacker can't just throw Hidden Power Flying on their Pokemon, and now they have a move that's gonna at least 2-hit KO, if not OHKO, Chestnut. So I was like, Chestnut's good in that respect, but what else makes it really good is the fact that it can Terrastallize. Now, let's say Chestnut... By the way, Chestnut has like a million different setup options. It has Bulk Up, there's Curse if you really want it, I don't know why you would, but there's the Belly Drum set, there is an Iron Defense Body Press set, you get Trailblaze to boost your speed. Not only that, but you have other moves. You have like Taunt, Spikes, so it's my first Hazard setter. You get Reflect, I didn't even know that. Get some good coverage. And I think with Terrastallization, which is the second reason that I wanted it, it can be really good. It can do like... So I have 3 Terra types on this, which are Terra Grass, Fire, and I believe Electric. And with those 3 types, I can pretty much tailor Chestnut to be whatever I want it to be any given week. If I wanted to take a flying move, Terra Electric. And now flying's not going to be doing crap to me. My only weakness is ground. But you didn't prep your ground type to beat my Chestnut, probably. That's just one of the options. So, and by the way, Terra rules in this league are only the lower tiers, so tier B or below can become a Terra Captain. So, this is one of them. And my second Terra Captain, because I really wanted rocks and a solid steel type, was Capparaja, or Capparaha, as I like to call it. So now with Capparaha, I get reliable Stealth Rocks, I get some other cool moves, I get like, another Iron Defense Body Press user. Outside of that, this thing doesn't get a ton of utility. It also gets Whirlwind though, so this is a very valuable phaser. But more so than that, I really just needed a reliable Steel type, so that way Mithridates, the Galarian Slowking, doesn't have to be all in on always stopping every Fairy type all the time. You know what I mean? because now I've already got 2 big weaknesses to Fairy, and one of them is my first-round pick. Having something that can pretty reliably take on most Fairies seemed like a pretty good deal to me. And, you know, it's one of the heaviest Pokemon in the game, so Heavy Slam is almost always going to be max power. You got some, you know, Play Rough to help hit Dragon types and Fighting types, and, you know, you got some cool stuff here. Definitely some cool utility moves and some cool techs that I can rock out with, hopefully. So then, I'm looking at my team, and I'm like, alright, this is a pretty good starting core. You know, my type synergies here. I got my utility moves, I've got whatever else. I got a mix between physical and special attackers, and I was like, I really need speed on this, because my fastest Pokemon up to this point is my 87 base speed Excalibur. That's just not going to cut it in Draft League. So I decided to go with Talonflame as my 6th overall pick. So this was my first, I think, A tier pick. By the way, Copperajah is a B tier, so similar to Chestnut. And I also forgot to mention that this is that the Copperajah is my 2nd Terra Captain, which I believe is Steelwater Ghost. So then my 6th pick, which it cannot Terra, is Talonflame. Now the reason I wanted Talonflame is pretty obvious. The 126 speed here is really, really fast, even for Draft League standards. Opponents' teams are only going to have maybe two, I should say, Pokemon that are going to outspeed 126, and even then, they might not even outspeed 126, so I was really glad I was able to get up to this speed tier. And Talonflame just has like a lot of good utility, even though its stats outside of speed aren't great. You know, obviously you have Brave Bird Flare Blitz, 2 really great stab attacking moves that, even without a lot of investment, can do a lot of damage. And it's also got things like Taunt, Tailwind. What I really also wanted with this pick was Defog. So, in Generation 9, a lot of Pokemon lost access to Defog for some reason. Like, I get why they got rid of it on Rotom, but did you really have to get rid of it on, like, the Genie trio? Like, the Landorus, Thundurus, Tornadus? Like, come on, don't they control the weather? How can they not control, like, a light fog? Anyway. Talonflame. Really good, reliable Defog. Another setup option. I have 2 really good abilities I can run, Flame Body or Gale Wings. Flame Body obviously can burn any contact move that comes towards it. A 30% chance. Now that is a Scald percent chance for those who are used to competitive Pokemon and Scald. It's also the same chance as Hurricane Confusion. And then Gale Wings also, even though it's not what it used to be, you know, back in Gen 6, is still useful if I can run, you know, heavy-duty boots to avoid entry hazards, and then I have a guaranteed priority Brave Bird whenever it comes in at full health, which is pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. So, Talonflame mostly got it for speed and defog, and also it fills the role of a fire type, so that completes my Fire, Water, Grass core. And those are my first 6 picks. So then, for my 7th pick, I was looking around at options, and I was like, okay, well, 126 is a pretty good speed stat for me to get, but I want another, like, decently fast option, like, you know, either 100 or above, so that way I can kind of fill in the gaps between Bax and Talonflame. So, originally, I wanted to go back to the A+ tier and grab Gengar. It grabbed me a 2nd Grounded Poison, a Ghost type, and also a decently fast but really hard-hitting special Wall Breaker. Unfortunately, just a few picks before I was up, Gengar got sniped, so this is one of the reasons I hated being the 7th draft position, is because it's just so hard to kind of confirm these cores, and every Pokemon you get has to be like one at a time. You really have to scrape and claw for every, you know, addition to the core, so because Gengar got chosen, I still wanted another Ghost type. I decided to go with Mimikyu from the A tier, not the A+ tier, but just the A tier, as my 7th pick. So, because Mimikyu is a Ghost type, it blocks Rapid Spin. Because it's a Fairy type, which I also needed, it blocks Dragon moves, and it also blocks, you know, Fighting moves for whenever those come around. Disguise allows me to guarantee take any one hit before, and it guarantees me to take any one hit when I first come in. So I'll always get either a guaranteed setup or a guaranteed attack off, or maybe I'll get some other kind of move off, like, because he's got a lot of utility. He's got, you know, Destiny Bond, Pain Split, Taunt, Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, Trick. Like, there's so many options that you can run with Mimikyu that you don't always have to run, you know, the SD double stab with Lumberry setup options every single week, you know. Even though that is a really good set, and it probably is the best set even in Draft League, it has so much that it can offer, and there's so much you can do with Disguise that it makes it just a really safe revenge killer, and also just good offensive and utility presence on my team in the fact that it's a ghost type. So, you know, even though I really wanted Gengar, I can't be too upset with picking up Mimikyu. I think, you know, it's a good pick, and it really rounds out my my Fairy Dragon Steel Core with Bax, Copperajah, and Mimikyu. So, you know, strong Fire Water Grass Core, strong Fairy Dragon Steel Core. I mean, if anyone even still thinks in that terms in Draft League, I have. Man, it's been a minute since I've done one of these, so this is really awesome. So, my next pick, I really wanted a fast special wall breaker, so I decided to go with Espeon. This is a second Psychic type for my team. So I already have the Galarian Slowking, but this is definitely a little different. This is much more offensive, much more frail, but also, you know, it has some really cool stuff. It has Magic Bounce, so if I ever bring it, my opponent needs to think twice about ever clicking anything other than attacking moves, whether that be Hazards, or like Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, Taunt, a lot of different moves. It really has to think twice. So, and not only that, but this is my third and final Terra Captain. So, I believe my Terra types are Psychic, Fairy, and Fighting on this Espeon, so pretty neat stuff. And yeah, so Espeon, pretty self-explanatory. You know, you can run Calm Mind setup, or you can just run straight up offensive, you know, break down the walls with Psychic and potentially Terra Dazzling Gleam. Plus, it's also got some cool, some neat little utility. It's got screens. It's got, what else does it have? Other than Thunder Wave, Yawn, Wish, Trick Strats. You know, most of the time this is going to be my wall breaker, but Espeon, it's got a lot of cool stuff going for it. So I'm really excited to use this thing. I think at B tier it was, or actually, no, this was C tier. So at C tier, this was very good value. You know, 130 special attack is absolutely nothing to scoff at, and I really needed that kind of fast special wall firepower on my team. So at this point in the draft, this is now after round 8, I kind of realized that most of the rest of the league already had all of their 3 A+ picks, and I only had 1. So I figured, I think I can get the A+ picks at this point that I want, and I can just keep attacking and finish off the my lower tier picks. So for my 9th pick, I went with Tatsugiri, which was actually below D tier, which was surprising, because I think this thing has some pretty good tricks up its sleeve. You know, you got Storm Drain, gives me a water immunity. You can run a bunch of different items like leftovers or assault vests. It's decently specially bulky if you can get it in on the right types of Pokemon, and it's got some really cool utility. It has Baton Pass, so that means it'll always be able to switch out. You have Rapid Spin, so this was one of the reasons I wanted it, is that it's a second remover. Obviously, I have Talonflame, and I have Espeon to deter entry hazards from coming in, but this would be my only spinner. And after Rapid Spin, I'll get a +1, and then I can abuse its base 120 special attack stat to my liking. So I can spam Surf and Draco Meteors, and I can go for Nasty Plot, I can go for Memento if I want to just get momentum back in my favor and, you know, cripple a Pokemon, go into one of my setup options, something like that. So this thing is really cool. I think it has a lot of cool strats you can do with it in Draft League, and so I'm really excited to use it. It'll be interesting. I went with the Droopy form because I noticed that this form in the team preview. It looks a little similar to Rotom, so I didn't want to make that mistake. So I went with the little pink guy instead of the little orange guy. And this is not a Terra Captain. I decided to make this one just Tatsugiri, no Terra, because I used my other 3 Terras on Pokemon that I thought would use it better and use it more. So now we're at this point. I have all of my lower tiers. I'm still missing my 2 A+ picks. And I still don't have a Dark, a Ground, or a Normal. Well, there were no Normals in the A+ tier. So, I mean, if that were the case, I probably would have gone with a Normal type and my 11th pick. But since there were no Normal types, I figured, okay, well, I need a Shadow Ball switch in, other than Chestnut. So let me grab Zarude. So Zarude, I have never used Zarude once. I have hardly even seen it in the competitive scene. In the limited amount of Showdown Ladder that I've played, I don't think I've ever seen it, maybe once or twice. And I've never seen it used in a draft league, so this will be pretty interesting for me. I really don't know what this thing likes to do, what it's all about, but I saw its stats and I'm like, man, this is pretty good. 105 HP, 105 defense, 95 SPDF. It's really hard to OHKO this thing, even with a super effective move. U-turn will almost certainly do the trick, and if it's a stab super effective move, then there's a decent chance that it dies if I'm not invested, but I just really liked it. 105 speed gave me a tier I didn't have before. 120 attack is very respectable. It's got some cool stuff. It's got U-turn. I think it has Swords Dance. Yeah, you got Power Whip. Unfortunately, no knockoff, which is a little disappointing, but Stomping Tantrum. It can taunt. I can low kick. You know, I got some really cool stuff here. Encore is a really good move, so with Zarude, it does kind of give me a bit of a U-turn weakness in that this Pokemon is weak to U-turn. I have Espeon that's weak to U-turn, and in addition, Mimikyu is also kind of weak to U-turn because the Pokemon can just break its disguise and then switch out and do whatever else, so this did give me a bit of a... This and my next pick gave me a bit of a U-turn weakness, but I think I'm okay with it. I think I can play around it. But it'll be really interesting to see what Zarude does. I've never once used it, but I'm really excited to try it out. So, my last pick, because everyone else had already picked their A+ at this point, I knew what I was getting. I didn't have to worry about getting sniped for my last pick, so I went with Crocodile. So basically, with these last 2 picks, it was between the 2 Pokemon that I drafted, as well. I was also considering stuff like Tyranitar and Clodsire, which are still available, but ultimately I decided to go with Zarude and Crocodile, the Double Dark. So Crook finally gives me my second Stealth Rock user after Kaparaha, and also it gives me just really good offensive ground presence. And this is also my first ground, which is important, because before this I had nothing to switch into a Volt Switch, so this is really nice. This will stop Volt Switch spam and stop electric spam right in its tracks. Plus, it's, you know, even though it did lose knockoff, so similar to Defog, a lot of Pokemon lost access to knockoff, which kind of makes sense. It's a really broken move. But this thing still has, like, Taunt Stealth Rocks, you know, and all the good offensive coverage that it still has, you know, Earthquake, Crunch, Aqua Tail, Fighting coverage. I think it gets Gunk Shot, yeah, Iron Head, I believe. Maybe not Iron Head, actually, but... You know, don't worry about that. But yeah, I just figured Crook, you know, and Intimidate. That's a really important aspect. But I just really thought that Crook would give me a good way to round out the team here. So, you know, that's about it. So those are that's the team. Got 11 Pokemon here. I'm really excited to get this league underway. I believe week 1 just officially began, I guess, today. So we're gonna have hopefully some battles by the end of the week, and I'm really excited to get into this. This is only my second Gen 9 Draft League. I'd had one that I didn't do any recording for. I unfortunately lost in the finals, and that was National Dex. And this is post-home Paldea Dex, so a very limited roster. But out of the limited Pokemon that were available, sorry about that, guys. But I think with the limited rosters that were available, I think I did a pretty good job at drafting a team that I like and a team that I think can be pretty viable. So I'm really excited to get this season underway, and I'll see you guys in week 1 when we face Dusty, our first opponent. So I will see you guys then, and until then, take care, you guys.